Hey everyone, I'm Pion and welcome to the Snowboard Game. What is the Snowboard Game, you ask? I like to call it a hardcore snowboard simulator. It released a few weeks ago and this is what it looks like. So I covered this before in a PPP video and I was quite interested in it, so I played it a little more and I have to say I quite enjoy this game. It definitely has its flaws and I'm gonna talk about those, but overall this is the most enjoyable snowboard game I ever played. And the reason for it is that it just feels more real. It's closer to the real deal. I'm doing snowboarding in real life and this captures the feeling of actually being on a board, carving down a mountain fairly closely. The reason for that is that the control scheme is more in-depth than in other games, and that makes the controlling or the snowboarding more rewarding and more challenging. Boarding in this game is not trivial. You will fail, you will fall a lot. It's fairly hard to do tricks. Like going down a mountain is not that hard, but not trivial either. And you have a good amount of control about it. Yeah, doing tricks is actually pretty tough in this game. And if you nail one, then that's a great feeling. So let's talk about the controls. That was perfect timing. I'm so proud of nailing that trick when I finished that sentence. There we go. No, I bailed. That made me feel good though. If you're wondering, by the way, I'm a little sick, so sorry if my voice is a little fucked up. Anyway, so let's talk about the controls. You can play the game with gamepad or controller, gamepad or keyboard. The game recommends the controller or gamepad. I cannot really talk about that because the game, I tried to play it with the controller, but the game didn't recognize my old controller properly. So I'm forced to the keyboard, but I enjoy playing with the keyboard in most games anyway. Or prefer playing with the keyboard. So I digged into the controls of the keyboard for this game. The game doesn't recommends going with controller, but I think the controls for the keyboard are actually fine. They have some quirks, but those quirks can be fixed, and I was talking to the dev about it, and he seems to listen, so I'm fairly optimistic that he will improve the controls even further, and that will make them, will the keyboard controls make not inferior or equal to the controller's controls. So, how does it work? I'm going to talk about keyboard, obviously. You control the board with D and A to do, well, basic turns. Let's try to salvage that. Good. What you can do additionally is you can press the arrow keys, and that's how you hold your hands, by the way. One on WASD and one on the arrow keys. So you can press the arrow keys to make a sharper turn like this. And that makes you stop. Like if you just use A and D, you're gonna go fairly fast, fairly quickly. So if we go down a mountain like this and don't bail, obviously, don't land on our ass, we're gonna get pretty quick. But if you press the arrow key, you can make a sharper turn, and if you want, stand still or just slow down a bit. And that also gives you more control over, like you can, obviously sharper turns means more control over where you're going actually. So that's the most fundamental difference to most other snowboard games when it comes to the boarding itself. And this little change actually makes it super enjoyable for me, because when I'm not big of a trick guy in real snowboarding. I'm enjoying doing exactly this, going down the mountain in big turns. And that doesn't feel as rewarding as it does in this game in most other snowboard games. And part of it is because of the animation and the physics, and part of it is because of the control scheme. So you can see the boarder is leaning pretty hard if you make him do so. And that's just like going like this is just what I enjoy the most in real life, and I enjoyed quite a bit in this game as well, and that makes me happy. So okay, so much for the basic controls. There's a little more to it. You can like, let's try to stand still for a moment. You can do an ollie, or is it called an ollie? Like you can pick up one side of the board with the arrow keys up and down, and that actually allows you to speed up a little bit. Like if you're stuck on a hill or something, then you can do that to speed up a little bit. You can also use it for jumping, or not jumping itself, but you can use it to alternate your jump a little bit, and do some tricks in like more flat areas, stuff like that. But let's talk about the jumping, because the jumping in this game is actually pretty in-depth and pretty challenging. It's not that, well, it's fairly in-depth, it's not super in-depth, but it's fairly challenging. It's not trivial at all, as I mentioned earlier. Doing a basic spin is fairly hard already. Like, what you have to do is, like in most snowboard games, hold down the space bar. Let's actually change area really quick. We're gonna travel to the starting area, show you a little bit more of the scenery. So holding down space will make your character go crouch and charge up the jump, basically, and then releasing it, didn't release it, and releasing it will make him jump like this, for example. Yeah, that's about jumping. So that's a basic jumping. If you want to make a spin, well, you have to hold an arrow key. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot one more basic controller. Let's put that in there really quick. So pressing S will make you... I'm not sure if S is doing something. I think you're maybe braking a little bit. Pressing A is making you crouch and go a little faster. Okay, back to jumping. So if you want to make a spin... Ooh, I did land that, wow. If you want to do a spin, you have to go to a kicker, or before you jump, doesn't have to be a kicker, obviously. Before you jump, you hold down an arrow key, but the timing has to be perfect. That was actually good. I'm gonna actually, let me show you that because that's easier. So we're gonna do the spinning tutorial because that has some guidance on it. So as you can see those circles now, they basically recognize my keyboard inputs. So there I did it correctly. So the timing is fairly precise. Basically you have to press a few milliseconds, the arrow key a few milliseconds before you release space. And if you do it correctly, the spin is fairly fast. And if you fail it, the spin will be fairly slow. So it's fairly precise, and that makes it fairly hard. Additionally, when you are in mid-air, you can speed up the spin or slow it down by pressing A or D. So I sped it up there, and that made me spin fairly fast. But if you don't have initial momentum, this will not do much. And that alone gives you more control over the game again. In most snowboard games, you just jump in the air and then you press an arrow or a directional button, and it makes you spin. Not in this game. You have to gain this initial momentum, or you will not do a spin at all. So there we go. That was a fairly slow spin, even though I pressed D to speed it up because my initial momentum was that bad. So that was a bit better, but still not great. But I did land it at least. So that's about spins. Doing flips is fairly similar. The difference is that you do it with the W and S buttons, and I failed that one hard, which is one of the quirks I mentioned earlier. In my opinion, there's no reason to actually limit the spins or the flips to either the arrow keys or WASD, because those buttons are not used for anything else at that point. Just allowing me to do both with both keys would be beneficial, or at least put it on the same. Like it would be okay with just doing the initial momentum thingy horizontally and vertically with the arrow keys, but it doesn't hurt to have those controls on WASD as well. But having one of them on the arrow keys and one on the WASD is really confusing and hard to memorize. And same goes for a different part of the jump, the landing. So when you are in midair and you press space, you prepare the landing, and that means that you can move the board a little bit. So if I hold space in midair, and then press, God damn it, and then press up or down, you will see the board move a little bit like that. Okay, so I press it up and down, and that make the board adjust, as you can see here, and that helps you to prepare the landing, because you have to land not perfectly, but you have to land decently to not bail. The game rewards you for perfect landings with more score, but it's not trivial to land correctly. So on top of that, you obviously can do the same thing horizontally as well, and you do that with, you guessed it, A and D instead of the arrow keys. So if I, oops, that's not what I wanted. So if I am mid-air and press space, I can do this to adjust the landing, or fail the landing, obviously, because I misadjusted it. So again, it would be nice to have those controls on the same buttons. So either WASD or arrow controls, or preferably both. Or give us options. There are key rebindings. There's a Unity rebinding options menu before you start the game. It's fairly uncomfortable though to do, or to use, and I'm not sure if you can actually change those things in that detail. I hate those pre-game Unity rebind option menus. They're not easy to use and not fun to use, and very annoying, especially if you're not sure about the terminology. Like I say some word and you're not sure what is this button actually, and to try it out you have to launch the whole game, and if it was wrong you have to restart, blah blah blah. Not a great way of doing rebindings, but better than none, obviously. So to do tricks, or grabs I should say, you use the arrow keys. So you can go mid-air and then press the right button, for example, to do an indie, or the left button to do a bail. As you can see, you fail a lot in this game. So the left button for a melon, and you can do a nose grab or a tail grab, obviously. Those are the simple ones. There are a few more ones, and now there is another flaw of this game. The tutorials for the keyboard controls are, well, non-existent for the mouse pad, which is very annoying. So you can do a different trick by double tapping one of the arrow keys. So that double right is a mute, and double left is a stale fish, for example. Double up and double down works as well. And now, in total, there are 10 grabs. So one for every direction, or two for every direction with a single and double tap. And then there are 2 special taps. On a controller, you do those with directional or diagonal input. So I think up left and up right. That doesn't work for keyboard, and for some reason it works different on the keyboard and works very weird. So if I remember correctly, I have to do this. Yeah. So you do a method by pressing quickly after another left and then up. So left, release left, and then press up, and you do a method. And now the other one is the Japan, which you do not with right up, but with up right. So the method is left up, and Japan is up right, which is, I don't know why. Like, this makes no sense to me. The simplest would be just use diagonal input. So if I press left and up at the same time, it does a method, and right and up does a Japan, but whatever. It would also be nice to just have 12 tricks, because we have 4 diagonal inputs, but I'm not sure about grabs. If there are so many grabs, probably. I don't know. As I said earlier, I'm not much of a trickster. I'm just enjoy carving down a mountain. But yeah, that screwed me over quite a bit, because one of the first few missions is that you have to do a method. And if you don't know the method to perform a method, well then obviously you can't continue. And yeah, so here's how it works. So okay, let's drive a little bit more, maybe. Wait, let's abandon this challenge. Oh yeah, another thing. Right now, that's just because of the recent patch though that worked earlier, and the dev is aware of it. You can see the tooltips down there. They're completely bonkers. Actually, you can see it. They're bonkers. On the restart button, there's a little R, but it says enter. That makes no sense. R is restart. L, for some reason, L is abandoned. You can change that if you want to. I think it's just in a place that you can't hit accidentally. I think that's the idea of having an L. L is not intuitive whatsoever now, obviously. Escape would make more sense. Actually, you press escape for continuing a lot. So resume here is escape, even though it says WASD right now, which makes even less sense. So escape is resume in a lot of cases. Basically, that's the buttons you need if you don't change the control scheme. Escape, R, L, and enter. And you usually can do everything with those. So let's actually abandon this challenge and just drive down the mountain a little bit. I like that this is actually fluent, so if you abandon the challenge, it will just disable the overlay and you can continue down the mountain if you want to. So that's quite good. I like that. So there's no unnecessary break of immersion. If you leave the area, by the way, didn't saw any invisible walls yet or anything, but at some point, ouch. At some point, you will actually, like the camera will just stop moving, and you can still continue boarding and going further, but you will lose track of your border at some point, and that makes him disappear at some point, obviously, and then, yeah, it doesn't make much sense to go further in that direction, but you can do so if you want to. So that's a pretty elegant way of limiting the area. I like that. No invisible walls. The other thing, actually the game tries that at multiple points. The other thing that is kind of immersive, like there's a minimal story going on. So other boarders are talking to you, introducing you to the new areas you unlock and stuff like that. Ah, god damn it, I thought I don't have to jump for that. And they sometimes mention an app. For example, they say, hey, there's this app that allows you to... Why am I pressing R? Okay, wait, I want to go there again. You can do that somehow. Free ride, rail course, I think. There we go. So they mention an app, for example, an app that shows you special challenge spots or something like that, and that's just the terminology the game uses to tell you, yeah, there's an overlay thing, but we want an in-game explanation for it. It's quite neat. Like, it's obviously a small detail. I'm too dumb to grind. So let's try this lock. There we go. You can do a 50-50, or you can an ass grind. I call that. You can also do the other one, I'm not sure what it's called, where you go sidewards with the board. Let's see. Whoop! There we go. Now that's a 50-50. Weird. Not sure. You can do 2 different grinds though. Oh yeah, you know, I can show you this a little better. Whoop, whoop. So you can do this, then adjust the jump. Like if you, that's, for example, this is actually a good training thing to do. So if you're struggling with the controls a bit, go here and then do this and jump. If you don't do anything, oh, actually, if you usually, you bail, exactly. So this is a good way of, oh, that bails you as well, interesting. This is a good way of training the landing thingy. You jump while doing this, and then you have to press space again mid-air and adjust the board to actually land this properly. So, yeah, I think I talked about the controls and stuff enough now. Let's talk a little bit about the content of the game. It's not gonna work. Never mind, perfect nose grab. There we go. Totally as planned. Okay, let's talk about the content a little bit. So, there are 5 different areas. I only unlocked 1 extra area so far there. You have to complete the missions for it. You saw both of them so far. So we're in the Viking Pass East right now, and we were in the backcountry earlier. And in all those areas, you have multiple missions. You will unlock more missions when you complete some. I completed all the story missions here already. Let's actually travel to the backcountry, why not, to show you that a little bit more. So we can go to the mission tab here, and you can see I have multiple story missions open, and most of them will unlock another mission as soon as I finish them. Also, you have tours where you do, for example, only trick tours here. You can do basically a race or like a score attack thingy. Trick tours are score attack, obviously, and like there are time attacks or whatever they're called, like a race basically against the clock mostly. Well, there are other borders actually. You can look at the area first if you want to. I'm not sure if you can. Oh, you can change the camera with the mouse. Okay, that's weird. We can press escape though to zoom and then start. And you can see the other borders are going down here, and they will do tricks, and you can do tricks as well and try to land them or not. And so you can do those tours, and they will give you a rating based on how well you perform. So you can try to 3-star the tours, which is actually really tough for the ones I tried. I mainly focused on the story missions so far. I landed that? I thought I would fall. There we go. Oh, what? Too bad. So I'm not gonna finish well here, obviously. Yeah, wrong button. So, yeah, there are a lot of missions. Most of the missions actually are a little different than the tourist missions, are more like simple tricks or very short races. Let's, for example, do a traversal. So in a traversal, you have to follow a certain pattern. Okay, I really hate this song. Can I change the music? I'm not sure if there's an option for that, to flip to the next song or something. I don't think so. I guess we have to live with it. So, I abandoned the mission. So in a traversal mission, you have to follow a certain path, and it's usually not super easy to do. You want to drive fairly slowly in most of those, so you're doing a lot of sharp turns to not fall. The hitbox are fairly generous, but I think I failed one anyway. And yeah, I missed one. Let's try that again. See if I can actually complete this mission. No, not this way. But yeah, that's how this works. Then there are trick attacks where you usually have to do one trick with a certain score or a special trick in a special spot. Okay, in this one we just have to get, we have to get 2,000 points. I'm not sure where the end zone is. That's actually a problem. This might be this mission. I was struggling with the mission because I actually don't know where it ends. Like, you have to get to the end zone, but I couldn't find the end zone. I think this was this mission, actually. I have no idea where the end zone is for this one. That's one of the... Like, the game has some flaws. Some pretty... Oh, there it is. Huh, there we go. The game has some flaws. Like, some things are not obvious. As I said, the keyboard controls are not explained well. There's some technical difficulties as well. Let's talk a little bit more about the content there. How do I enter? Okay. So those are missions. Then you can do free ride, which is just driving around in different spots, and you have different starting locations. So you can either start at the top, or as I did earlier, at a certain trick park or something along those lines. Then there's that you can do. I didn't really dig deep into the system. There is a session system which allows you to do video challenges. I'm not sure. There's actually two different things, I think. I'm not sure. It's a little strange. So you can basically make your own challenges, and other people can play those as well. And doing them gives you money and fans, or I think, and that allows you to unlock or buy things in your inventory. It's really convoluted and not well explained system, and I didn't really dig into it because I'm not that interested in it. I enjoy just doing the missions so far. But yeah, there is an online multiplayer component to this. It's a little weird though, and I don't think the game has a big player base right now. It didn't look like a lot of people are actually creating those challenges. So I'm not sure if it is worth to dig into this at all. Yeah, but I think there's a lot of content already with 5 fairly big areas, a lot of different missions, and just the core gameplay is just quite fun, as I mentioned earlier, because of the control scheme being as rewarding as it is. So let's talk about the technical difficulties. Basically, I have 2 big problems. There are 2 game-breaking bugs besides a lot of UI issues. Like, okay, let's talk about the small things first. So the UI is not great. It's obviously designed with the controller in mind, so that's one of the problems. Obviously, to switch between keyboard and mouse a lot, and the keyboard controls are not intuitive for menuing whatsoever. It's really strange. In general, the menu is not very intuitive. It's kind of hard to navigate. There are a lot of unnecessary prompts and stuff like that. So the UI is not terrible, but let's call it suboptimal. Damn it. But the 2 technical problems I don't have FPS drops, but what I have is crashes, 1 or 2 crashes per hour, which is quite annoying. And the other thing is there is an occasional physics bug where I jump over a hill and I don't have gravity anymore and just fly away. And the only way to solve it is to restart the game. So just leaving the mission or restarting run or whatever is not fixing it. You have to restart the game if you experience that, which is a little annoying. Doesn't happen too often though. So expect a few crashes and physics bugs during a longer session. But it didn't hurt the fun for me too much so far. It's obviously annoying, and obviously something that should be fixed if possible, but I also imagine it's fairly hard to track down for a developer to find those issues. So yeah, it would be nice if they got fixed, but they're not right now. Let's talk about the option menu and stuff. As I said earlier, there is a pre-game options, Unity options menu, and we also have this menu. So this menu is fairly extensive, but they're lacking some obvious things, and there are other issues with it. So first we have camera settings. Well, we have game settings, which separates in HUD, height, HUD, and free ride, which is a good option actually. I didn't notice that earlier. I'm gonna activate that. I like that option. Gives you more like a, well, immersive feel. And camera settings mostly. Would be nice to know what those things actually are. I assume this is the render distance. I'm not sure. Fast FOV is probably your default FOV. Slow FOV is probably a multiplier to change the FOV when you're slow. What is the right angle and the deep right angle? Probably the camera angle. Like this is, it would be, it's cool that we have those options, and I think the defaults work well. I just adjusted the FOV a little bit from 80 to 90. But besides that, this is all the default settings. But it would be nice to have either direct feedback, like having something that immediately shows you what changes when you change those, or good tooltips that actually explain what those options do. Same goes for this menu. This is the graphics menu. We have resolution options and window mode in the pregame launcher, no borderless window as with most Unity games. Even though I know that it is very easy to implement, Port Ponky, the developer of Recursed actually like implemented it after I requested borderless window mode, and he said it was really easy. I don't know what trick he used though, but the default Unity options are window mode and full screen mode. So most Unity games just go with that. Anyway. So this is the graphics options. As I said, resolution options are outside of the game, which is a little annoying, but not too bad. You usually don't want to change them too much. You have a frame rate cap, which has a cap. It would be nice to have an unlimited option here, but having this adjustable cap is always good. If you're wondering, I usually play games at max frame rate, but for recording purposes, I kept them at 60. And then there are a bunch of options which are not quite obvious what they are, at least not to me. Like if you're a graphics geek, you probably have an idea what they do. Render distance trees, okay. What does this mean? Like, I know what a render distance is. At a certain distance, objects will not be rendered anymore to take stress off the graphic card. This is a checkbox now. What does this mean? Are trees rendered in a distance if I check this, or are they not rendered? At what distance? I don't know. Render solid particle spray. Distance terra pixel error. What? I have no idea what this means. It's good to have those options, but it would be nice to have an explanation for them. As I said, some people might know what they mean, but for the casual gamer, this is not helpful whatsoever. Anyway, in the Premium launcher, there's also like a few graphics presets which you can choose, so that's probably fine for most people. Controls, as I said, rebinds are unfortunately in the pre-game launcher, which is very annoying. Then this option. This option is very important when you're playing on the keyboard. Very important. You have to check this. If you don't, you're gonna be screwed. And that was me playing the game for the first hour. There are two big differences, or well, three big differences actually if you check this button. First, in-game prompts will actually change to keyboard prompts. They're bugged right now, but they are actually keyboard prompts. If you uncheck this, there will be gamepad prompts. So this is the first big difference. The second big difference is that the controls actually change. I have no idea why, but the keyboard controls actually swap, or some of the buttons swap when you check this button. And but the layout for the checked version is obviously the intended layout. I have no idea why that is the case. That makes no sense to me whatsoever, but that's the case. And the third option is that the turning and spinning is a little adjusted for keyboard controls because it's a little harder to pull off. So I think the timing is a little different. It's a little bit more lenient for keyboard controls. Then you can change the camera Y or invert the camera Y-axis, which is a good option. And you can change the dead zone for your controller and the timeout. So that's control the settings, obviously. It's good to have those. As I said, it would be nice to have keyboard rebindings in here. In general, it would be nice to have the keyboard bindings somewhere because you can't find them in the game. And then we have the audio menu, which is just lacking. We have a checkbox for music on. Good that we can turn it off. I appreciate that. Would be nice to have separate audio sliders or audio sliders in general. That would be great, but okay. So from a technical perspective, the game is less than perfect. But the gameplay is fun enough for me to actually... This is really weird as well. Like, the only way to close this UI is to press escape. There's no button for it. Like, you have a quit button here, but no resume button. This is really strange. Also, you have controller prompts up here, no matter you have the button checked or not. I don't know. A little weird, as I said, UI is not perfect. But as I mentioned, the game is, for me, just from the gameplay perspective, fun enough to, well, not make me ignore those issues, but compensate for them. Like, I can tolerate them because I enjoy playing the game. And that's always a good sign for good gameplay for me. Like, I'm usually someone who's super nitpicky when it comes to technical and user experience issues. But when I can overlook them because I enjoy the gameplay, that tells me that I really enjoy the gameplay and I'm not just thinking I do. And that's the case here. So I just have a lot of fun going down this mountain. This is super chilly for me. Like, doing the missions and stuff is cool. It's rewarding if you manage them. But just going free ride, going down a mountain, doing an occasional trick, landing on your butt from time to time, that's just super chilly for me, super relaxing. I really enjoy doing that. One of the, like, I usually have one game at a time which I play when doing something else, like watching a movie, talking to friends, like doing something relaxing. I'm someone who needs to or likes to keep his hands busy. And a game like this is perfect for that. Like chatting to people in TeamSpeak or whatever voice. I'm not chatting, talking to friends over voice. And while doing that, just going down this chilly mountain. That's the last game I did that with was what's it called? Oh god damn it, forgot the name. Revolt of the Gamers thingy. Hover. That was really cool for that as well. But this game is even more perfect for me for that. So I really enjoy doing that, and it's really, really great. It's really great. So yeah, if you're still watching this, then you're probably intrigued enough to try this out. So I did put the link in the description below. You really have to like snowboarding, and you have to be prepared for a fairly hard learning curve and some technical issues. But at least for me, it was worth it. And that's why I made this video, obviously. So yeah, check it out for yourself if you want to. Link is in the description below. Game released a few weeks ago. It's called The Snowboard Game. This name is terrible, by the way. This is the most... Oh, god damn it. Like, the name is so bad for so many reasons. Oh, there's the camera thing, by the way. The name is so terrible. It's super uncreative, obviously. It's very boring name. It's terrible for search optimization, so you will never find this game on any Google search or YouTube or whatever. Or you will find it, but you will have a way harder time finding this than something like Steep or something. Well, Steep is not a great name either, but you get the idea. But on the other hand, the name is kind of perfect because it just describes what this is. Like, it's a real snowboard game. It's not like a snowboard casual fun ride. It's a game about snowboarding. It's a simulator, after all, in my opinion. And so the name is somewhat fitting as well. But still, I think a different name would have been better. Maybe like have a catchy title and then as a subtitle, The Snowboard Game. Just The Snowboard Game as a subtitle. That would be that would be good. Anyway, game released with this name, so it's not gonna change probably. So yeah, let's wrap this up. Thanks a lot for watching. Have fun and see you next time.